Hello students, here is a tutorial that is going to tie directly in with our theme of efficient editing, and I'm going to introduce you to something called an adjustment layer. And this particularly is a very powerful tool if you have a lot of clips that you have in your timeline that you want to do the same thing to. All right, so some of you may have added maybe a color effect or one of the video effects or something to one of the clips, and you really like the way it looks and you'd love to apply it to all different ones. So one way you could do that is you could click the clip, go over to effects, and you could copy whatever effect it is and paste it onto all the other ones. Okay, that could work. However, if you do that, then if you decide, hey, maybe I want to tweak that a little bit, you're going to have to go and change it on every single other clip. So there is a way to do what's called an adjustment layer. And what that is basically a layer that you can place in your timeline above your footage, and you can apply effects to that, and it will affect anything below it. And that's a really powerful way to hit your entire timeline or large portions of your timeline with effects and other settings that you might want to apply to areas that have lots of existing edits. And another really powerful thing about it is you can hide the adjustment layer to make things easier on your computer in case you want to move on to other things and shut off some of those effects so that your computer isn't struggling to show your project in real time. So let's take a look at what that actually looks like when we do it. So if we go back into either, I believe, the assembly or editing tab, it actually doesn't matter. You just need to be in this project area. So you can find that easily in the assembly area or in the editing area. So anyways, I've created an adjustment layer, but I can make as many of them as I want to. So I'm going to make another one. And we can see that this icon of the folded page is the same one that you see in other Adobe products like Illustrator or Photoshop. That little folded page means make a new something. So we're going to make a new adjustment layer. And we can decide the size of it, and it's going to by default make it the same as our sequence dimensions. So we're just going to hit OK on that, and there's our layer. Now if we drag it into the timeline, we can see it's pretty short, but we can with other things. So there's our adjustment layer. Cool. So what can we do with this? Well, the most straightforward example is when we want to do color correction. So maybe we want to add an effect to the clip here. So I need to make sure my adjustment layer is selected. And just to get started, Adobe Premiere has a bunch of pre-made, they call them looks, which are basically color balances that transform your footage to give it a particular effect. And some of them are more striking or more intense than others, and you can experiment with these. Ooh, HDR, nice. So I'm going to clear that though. I don't want those. I'm going to switch that back to none. And you can see that as I do this, I'm getting live updates in my preview window here. No. So some other things we can do. We can do some individual adjustments to our footage. So we can see that by dragging the saturation, we can make it black and white, we can make it super saturated, we can adjust vibrance, which is sort of like saturation, but also affects the brightness as well. We can sharpen, we can blur, so we can do some things like that. So we have some manual controls that we can do some stuff with. We can also tint our shadows and highlights, which can cause some really interesting looks as well. So you can kind of create your own feel for your footage, and you'll see that since this adjustment layer is across the entire project here, everywhere I click, I need to make sure that I render my sequence. All right, I didn't feel like rendering the whole thing, so I stopped it. But you can see here that I have the color that I set here applied to my adjustment layer, and it exists across all the clips in the timeline. So once again, this is a very powerful tool because, say here, I've hidden that layer, and while yes, I have to re-render my sequence, depending on the amount of effects that I apply to this layer, once I get it looking the way I want, I can then hide it and focus on other things and preview other areas of my timeline without adding this to the burden that the computer is placed under. So this is a very good way to make your editing more efficient. And that's all for now. Bye.